Ominous, atmospheric music begins. Subtly rising and falling, the night was thick with a fog that swallowed the road whole. Michael Carter drove, his headlights barely piercing the gloom, his mind churning over the letter. It had arrived a week ago, penned in a shaky, ancient hand, claiming he'd inherited a property from a relative he never knew existed, a place called Ashthorne Asylum. A place that had been shuttered for over 50 years after a fire. Logic screamed at him to burn the letter, to forget this madness, but a darker, more curious part of him had one. It put him in his car and pointed him toward a place the locals only spoke of in hushed, fearful whispers. They told stories of screams echoing through the forest, of lights flickering in windows where no one lived, of shadows that crawled where they shouldn't. His car crunched over gravel, stopping before towering rusted iron gates. The air immediately turned colder, heavier, as if the asylum itself had drawn a deep breath, waiting. He stepped out, his boots sinking into damp earth, and pulled his jacket tight. There it was, looming on the hill. Its broken windows stared like hollow eyes, its stone walls blackened by fire and time. The doors were chained, yet they pulsed with a palpable menace. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, but he gripped his flashlight and moved forward. Some questions demand answers. Some nightmares refuse to be ignored. The gates groaned as he forced them open, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the dead of night. He crossed a courtyard, choked with weeds and broken statues, and swore he heard it the scrape of feet on gravel, though he was alone. A faint, weeping sound carried on the wind. When he reached the main doors, the heavy chains that should have held them fast lay snapped, as if something had forced its way out, or in. The moment he stepped inside, the smell hit him, a foul mix of burnt wood, damp mold, and something sickeningly sweet, like decay. His flashlight beam cut through swirling dust, revealing a scene of utter chaos. Peeling wallpaper, overturned wheelchairs, beds with straps hanging loose, as if their former occupants had thrashed against them in agony. And then he saw the words, scratched deep into the plaster walls. "Let us out." He tried to dismiss it as vandalism, kids trying to spook each other, but the letters were old, etched so deep his fingers caught in the grooves. And some were written in what looked disturbingly like dried, flaking, dark brown stains. The deeper he ventured into the asylum's decaying heart, the louder the sounds became. Whispers skittered at the edge of his hearing. The squeak of a lone wheel echoed down an empty hall. A faint clink of chains made the hairs on his neck stand up. He started seeing flashes of movement, shadows darting at the end of corridors, a hand sliding just out of sight, reflections in shattered glass that didn't match his own. His heart hammered against his ribs as he pushed open the heavy door to the central ward. The vast room was lined with rows of broken beds. The air grew frigid, his breath turning to mist. His flashlight, with fresh batteries, began to flicker erratically, and then he heard them. Voices, dozens of them, rising in a discordant chant, crying, laughing, screaming all at once, overlapping into a squeaking cacophony. "Stop," he shouted into the darkness, but the voices only swelled, growing louder. The room itself seemed to pulse with them, the walls trembling as dust rained from the ceiling. In the far corner, he saw movement. A patient's chair, facing the wall. As he took a hesitant step closer, it turned slowly, deliberately, on its own. A figure was bound within it, a shape in a torn hospital gown, its skin as pale as bone, its face obscured by long, matted black hair. His flashlight trembled. The figure raised its head. Hollow, empty sockets stared back at him where eyes should have been. Its mouth was sewn shut with thick black thread, and though it could not speak, a voice screamed inside his mind, "You should not have come." He staggered back, nearly dropping the light. The figure began to twitch violently, its head jerking from side to side. The threads ripped, one by one, with a sickening tearing sound, until its mouth was torn open wider than humanly possible. A scream, raw and soul-shattering, poured out, shattering the silence, and echoing through the halls like the wail of the damned. Michael ran. His frantic footsteps echoed through the labyrinthine asylum. The building itself seemed to twist around him, corridors stretching into impossible lengths, doors shifting places. Windows that should have shown the foggy night now revealed nothing but an absolute black void. Every time he rounded a corner, the shadows were there, following him, closer now, whispering his name. "Michael, Michael." He stumbled into a stairwell and plunged into the darkness below. The smell of rot was overpowering here, the air thick and damp, the walls dripping with a foul moisture. When he reached the bottom, his light fell upon rows of cells. Their iron bars were bent outward, their doors hanging from broken hinges. Inside each cell, a shape was hunched in the corner, motionless. But as he passed, their heads turned in perfect, horrifying unison to face him. Empty eyes gleamed in the gloom, and their mouths opened to release a chorus of whispers that rose around him like a tide. At the far end of the hall was a door, heavier than the rest, marked with a strange symbol carved deep into the metal. He wanted to run, to go any other way, but his legs were no longer his own. The whispers urged him, pushed him forward, until his trembling hands pulled the heavy door open. The room beyond was vast and circular, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center was a pit. A black, oily mist rose from it, twisting into tormented forms' faces, contorted in silent screams, hands clawing at nothing, bodies writhing in eternal agony. His flashlight flickered violently, and in a moment of terrifying clarity, he saw his own reflection in the swirling mist. But it wasn't him. It was a version of him, pale, hollow-eyed, his mouth stretched wide in a soundless scream. A voice spoke then, deep and ancient, not in the room, but inside his head, all around him. You are the last. The bloodline is complete. You belong to us now. And in that instant, he understood. The letter, the inheritance, it was all a trap, a lure. His family hadn't just owned this place. They had built it. They had fed it with souls. And now, it was his turn to join them. Shadows surged from the pit, wrapping around him like icy tendrils, the cold searing his skin. They pulled him down, his struggles useless, his screams swallowed by the suffocating darkness. His flashlight clattered to the floor, the beam spinning wildly across the chamber walls. For a final heart-stopping second, it illuminated the names, hundreds of them, scratched into the stone with bloody fingernails. And there, at the very bottom, a name was already carved: Michael Carter. His final scream was lost to the abyss, and Ashthorne Asylum fell silent once more. Days later, travelers passing on the lonely roads swore they saw lights flicker in the asylum's broken windows. They heard faint, chilling laughter drifting on the wind, and some, those who dared to look a little closer, claimed they saw a figure at the gates, a pale figure with hollow eyes, waiting patiently for someone new to arrive. Thank you for joining me on this terrifying journey into Ashthorne Asylum. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales from the shadows, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a new nightmare. Until next time, stay safe, and whatever you do, don't read strange letters.